Imagine the following domestic scene, which today repeats thousands of times a day in homes all over the world. Your child, 4, 7, or 10 years old, is sitting on the couch, completely motionless. Their jaw is slightly relaxed. They blink rarely, fixed at a distance of 20 inches on a bright glass screen. You walk through the living room, call their name once. No response. You call their name a second time, now in a slightly louder tone of voice. Their little body doesn't even move. It looks like they've been anaesthetised. On the third call, you walk over, touch their shoulder, and that is when chaos erupts. They startle, throw their body back in anger, hide the screen, cry copiously, scream that you ruined everything, and within seconds enter a fit of aggressiveness that seems completely disproportionate to the fact that you just asked them to turn off the device. You look at that scene and think, my God, what happened to my child? They turned into a different person. But the truth that neuroscience and child psychology need to tell you, and that the tech industry spends billions to hide from you, is that your child did not turn into a different person. Their brain is, quite literally, under the influence of an invisible substance that alters neurological functioning in a way identical to a heavy drug of abuse. Today, we are going to dive deep into the frightening effect of cell phones, tablets, and short videos on the child's brain. We are going to dissect the biological mechanisms, real harms to mental health, damage to cognitive development, and most importantly, how you, a parent, can rescue your child's attention and mental health before it is too late. If you think the cell phone is just a modern, harmless electronic babysitter to keep them busy while you rest, get ready, because what you are about to hear will completely change the way you view this technology inside your home. To understand the scale of the problem, we first need to look at the most perfect and complex machine in the universe, a developing child's brain. An adult's brain already has its main structures formed and consolidated. It has neurological brakes, the famous prefrontal cortex, that help weigh impulses, calculate consequences, and delay gratification. But a child's and teenager's brain is a massive work in progress, and a brain under construction is extremely vulnerable to its environment. When an adult uses a cell phone, they theoretically have the ability to close the app and go wash dishes, although many adults also struggle with addiction. But when a child puts their eyes on a cell screen, especially consuming infinite scroll content like short, colourful 15-second videos, what happens inside their head is a true chemical hijacking. The key to this hijacking has a name and surname: dopamine. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation, desire, anticipation of reward, and pleasure. We need dopamine to survive. It is what gives us the drive to eat, learn, hunt in the past, and pursue goals in life. But natural dopamine is released in homeopathic doses, gradually, and obtained through effort. When you read a book, your brain produces dopamine slowly because pleasure is the fruit of cognitive work. When you build a block tower with your child, dopamine rises slowly as the tower gets tall and collapses. Effort generates reward. The cell phone throws this age-old logic of human biology straight into the trash. Social media apps and digital children's games were not designed to entertain. They were ingeniously engineered by behavioural neuroscientists to be addictive. They use the exact same mathematical and psychological principle as casino slot machines: unpredictable intermittent reinforcement. The child swipes the screen and, in a microsecond, receives a shrill visual stimulus, upbeat music, a giant emoji, an explosion of colours, and an unexpected reward. Will the next video be cool? Oh, that one was funny. And the next? Let me watch one more. Every swipe of the finger is a pulled slot machine lever. The child's brain, which has no developed filters, is flooded with colossal sudden spikes of dopamine. We are talking about a release so violent that the regulation system of the child's brain simply collapses. Think of it like a sound system. If you operate the sound at a normal volume, it lasts for years. If you crank the sound all the way up, you blow out the speakers in seconds. That is precisely what happens to the dopamine receptors in a child's brain. And here lies the first great invisible danger: tolerance. With weeks of using the cell phone every day, the amount of dopamine that previously brought joy and kept the child calm is no longer enough. The brain gets used to the extreme peak. What does this mean in practice? It means that when your child turns off the phone and you ask them to draw, play with a real toy, read a book, or talk to you at dinner, their brain perceives these normal activities as absolute boredom, grey and unbearable. To a screen-addicted brain, offline reality feels like a dull desert. The level of dopamine that real life offers is now too low to stimulate that hyper-stimulated mind. This is why the child cries saying they are bored, that life is boring, and that there is nothing to do, even surrounded by expensive toys. It is not laziness, it is real neurological withdrawal. But the damage doesn't stop at dopamine. Let's move to the second major impact: the destruction of sustained attention capacity. Childhood is the critical period when the neural architecture of attention is being welded. To learn at school, to solve a complex math problem, to listen to a long story, or to develop empathy by paying attention to what someone else is feeling, a child needs so-called sustained attention. It is the ability to focus on a single thing for 10, 20, 30 minutes, ignoring surrounding stimuli. What does the modern format of cell phone videos do to this ability? It systematically assassinates it. The latest research in neuropsychology shows that short videos change scenes, angles, or sounds every 2 or 3 seconds. The child's brain is trained not to need to focus on anything for more than the blink of an eye. If a second of video is slightly uninteresting, the finger swipes and another instant stimulus appears. The child is, therefore, training their brain to have a technology-induced attention deficit. When this same child arrives at a traditional classroom, what happens? The teacher speaks in front of the chalkboard for 5 straight minutes. There are no blown-out sound effects. There are no flashing neon lights. There is no scenery change every 3 seconds. To a brain moulded by screens, the school lesson feels like the slowest, most boring and most impossible thing in the world to follow. The result? The child squirms in their chair, starts disrupting classmates, mentally zones out, daydreams, and, tragically, gets what? A mistaken medical label of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Many children are being medicated or labelled with severe neurological problems when, in reality, the only disorder they have is daily digital poisoning that destroyed their ability to focus on stimuli that do not provide immediate pleasure. And if you think the damage is only cognitive, get ready for the third point: the devastating impact on emotional mental health and mood regulation. Chronic irritability is the number one symptom of children who spend many hours in front of screens. Since we touched on the subject of the dopamine peak, we need to talk about the dopamine valley. Every time there is a giant artificial spike of a neurotransmitter, the law of biology collects the price right after, the abrupt drop below baseline. It is the period of chemical withdrawal and hangover. When you announce that screen time is over and take the device from the child's hand, their brain experiences more than just ordinary annoyance. it experiences a chemical free fall. Dopamine levels plummet steeply, while stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline spike instantly. This is why the tantrum after using a phone is not simple misbehavior or ordinary educational defiance. It is pure neurological withdrawal. The child loses control of their nervous system because their emotional brain, the amygdala, takes total control, while the prefrontal cortex, reason, is completely shut down by the panic of stimulus deprivation. If you cave and give the phone back to stop the crying, you teach the child's brain a disastrous formula. If I scream, throw a fit, and destroy the house, I get my digital drug back. You relentlessly reinforce the addiction cycle. Beyond irritability, the cell phone silently destroys the ability to tolerate frustration. The digital world is shaped for instant gratification. Want to watch a cartoon? Press the button and it starts immediately. Want to pass a level? Buy an extra life. Want attention? Post something and get likes. Real life, on the other hand, demands waiting. It demands planting to harvest. It demands that the child learns to deal with the fact that not everything goes their way the second they want it. When we strip away tolerance to frustration through excessive screen use, we create a generation of emotionally fragile children, incapable of dealing with a no, a bad grade, a broken toy, or a friend who didn't want to play with them. They fall apart at any obstacle because their brains have been programmed for the absolute ease of the virtual world. Yet there is a fourth element in this equation that is even more terrifying: the destruction of social development and empathy. The human brain is a social organ. We evolved to live in tribes, to read microfacial expressions, to interpret the subtle tone of voice of others, to understand body language, to negotiate conflicts face to face, and to learn to regulate our emotions through co-regulation with other people. When a child spends hours staring at a static or dynamic screen, they are looking at pixels of light, not real human faces. They stop practicing the reading of empathy. In the real world, if a little classmate cries, the child sees the tear, feels the empathetic discomfort in their own brain via mirror neurons, and learns to comfort. In the virtual world, if a cartoon or game character dies, they respawn with a click. There are no real consequences for actions. There is no emotional weight. Child development psychology studies show an alarming increase in modern children's difficulty decoding basic human emotions on other people's faces. They are losing the ability to maintain prolonged eye contact. They find real conversation boring because real conversation has pauses, has silences, requires active listening, and lacks automatic sound effects every 3 seconds. The result is a generation suffering from an invisible epidemic of loneliness, social anxiety, and an inability to form deep, lasting bonds. They are digitally hyperconnected but profoundly isolated and alone in the real world. And if we dive into the deeper biological impacts, we reach the fifth point: the hijacking of sleep and the ruin of physical development. A child's mental health and cognitive development depend directly on a good night of restorative sleep. It is during deep sleep that a child's brain clears out toxins accumulated during the day, consolidates school learning memories, repairs tissues, and secretes growth hormone. What does the cell phone do to sleep? First, the blue light emitted by LED screens severely blocks the natural production of melatonin, the sleep hormone that tells the brain it's time to slow down and shut off. When a child uses a phone late into bed, their brain interprets that it is still midday, keeping the alert state activated. Second, highly stimulating content keeps the mind racing. The child might fall asleep out of sheer exhaustion, but their sleep is shallow, fragmented, and poor in quality. A child who sleeps poorly because of a cell phone wakes up the next day chronically fatigued. And what is the symptom of chronic fatigue in young children? Extreme irritability, paradoxical hyperactivity, learning difficulties, a drop in immunity, and unbridled impulsivity. Parents often medicate or fight over behaviours that are, at their root, merely the result of a child's brain chronically deprived of deep sleep because of glowing screens at bedtime. Furthermore, screen-induced sedentarism is creating an unprecedented public health crisis in childhood. Early obesity, weakening of postural muscles, severe vision problems such as the global explosion of early childhood myopia cases due to a lack of focus in open environments and natural light, and chronic cervical spine pain from the habit of keeping the head curved downward, looking at a phone. The body was made for movement, for running, for climbing, for feeling the wind, for getting knees dirty in dirt. When we trap a child's body in a 1 square metre radius with a phone in hand, we atrophy both body and mind. I know that right at this moment, as you listen to all of this, an overwhelming wave of guilt may well up in your chest. It is very common to think, my God, I was the monster in this story. I gave my phone to my child so I could work, so I could cook in peace to make them stop crying at a restaurant. I ruined my child's brain. Take a deep breath right now. Paralysing guilt helps with absolutely nothing. Guilt is an anchor that stops you from taking action. The tech industry spent billions of dollars, hired the best psychologists, data scientists, and engineers on the planet to create hyper-addictive systems specifically designed to bypass our parental vigilance. You were fighting an unequal battle against Silicon Valley, using the tools you had in an exhausting modern world without a support network. You didn't do it out of malice. You did it for parental survival. Yet the great, wonderful news that brain neuroplasticity brings us is that the brain is malleable. The child's brain has an incredible capacity to recover, restructure, and heal when we remove the toxic agent and return what is essential for human development. Digital detox is not an impossible monster to beat. It will demand something from you, as a parent, that is scarce, difficult, and painful in the short term: courage, consistency, and presence. During the first few days of restricting or cutting screens, your child will throw a fit. They will complain. The withdrawal symptoms will feel unbearable. They will say they hate you, that life is over, that they have absolutely nothing to do. It is at that exact moment that many parents falter and say, "Oh, you know what? Just take this phone to stop screaming. I can't take it anymore." If you do that, you have lost the war. But if you maintain loving firmness, if you endure the crying, if you hold your child's hand through the storm of digital withdrawal, something magical happens around the 5th or 7th day. The storm begins to subside. Dopamine levels begin to rebalance. The brain begins to recover its natural sensitivity to life's small pleasures. Suddenly, you will look at your child and see them sitting on the living room floor, focused on building a tower of blocks for 20 straight minutes, asking nothing of anyone. You will see them paying attention to an ant in the garden. You will see them laughing at a simple joke without needing neon lights or blaring sound effects. You will see the sparkle of real childhood return to their eyes. Technology is not going to disappear from the world, and computers and phones will be part of our children's future, yes, but childhood cannot be outsourced to a cold screen. Your child's brain needs boredom to create, it needs silence to think, it needs frustration to mature. It needs real human faces to learn how to love and live in society. If you want to protect your child's future, intelligence, mental health, and heart, start today. Establish clear limits. Get the phone out of the bedroom at bedtime. Rescue the sacred power of creative boredom. Be the safe harbour they run to when the offline world feels too difficult. If this video opened your eyes to what is truly happening behind that glowing screen, if it gave you the strength you needed to change the reality of your home right now, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Share this video with that friend or family member who is also raising children and needs to know what technology is silently doing to our kids' brains. We are not alone in this mission to rescue real childhood. A huge hug, take a deep breath, and I'll see you in the next video.